And we're here with Jeffrey Lord this morning. Jeffrey, good to have you in. And, we're met on a Friday morning here, and as we look ahead to the new week with this new thing coming out of national security that, the Russians are already interfering in this election, might have already interfered in the Democratic primaries. Is this the next chapter in, okay, if we can't beat Trump, let's discredit him? Is that the very next thing? I mean, is it more than just perception that we have right now? Your thoughts?
No, I don't think it is. Look, these people, by which I mean the deep state or the administrative state or whatever, are possessed about doing in Donald Trump. And they'll move from one method to another to try and accomplish their ends. And I think this is just the latest one. But for historical context, I should tell you a former colleague of mine in the Reagan administration did the research, and he found out that the Russians tried to interfere in the 1948 election. They tried to interfere in the 1956 election and were called out by President Eisenhower. They tried to interfere in 1960. In 1976, in 1984, this is not new. This is not unique to Donald Trump.
Well, here would be an interesting headline. Suppose we had this one. Mainstream media is taking steps to make sure Trump isn't elected in 2020. Would that be interesting? Here we have the Russians who obviously have shown that they'd like to meddle in what we're doing and create a little confusion and discord. Is that what the mainstream media is supposed to be doing? In other words, they're out there basically saying, we're going to make sure he doesn't get elected. It's very obvious they've taken a side in all of this. Or what if we said the national intelligence agencies look like they want to make sure that the president doesn't get elected in 2020? Or what if we said the Congress wants to make sure that the president doesn't get elected in 2020? Wouldn't we sooner have someone who hates us trying to do this than the inside people who are supposed to love our country doing this? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know that line from the movie years back, A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson? Mm-hmm. I want the truth.
Yeah. You can't handle the truth.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what they'd say. And the truth is, this is a bad situation. And I might add, in the book world, a friend of mine by the name of K.T. McFarland, KT as in Kathleen,
right.
She was briefly the deputy national security advisor for President Trump. She served in the Reagan administration, which is how I know her. She has a book coming out in which she details how the administrative state, as it were, the Mueller people, tried to set her up in the same way they did General Flynn. They showed up unannounced at her house and said they wanted to interview her. Not saying, that she needed a lawyer, et cetera. They tried to entrap her. I mean, this is seriously bad stuff. And the fact that this is going on here, I mean, we need to get this under control, which is what I hope Attorney General Barr is all about.
Speaking of Attorney General Barr, he said to President Trump, hey, I don't like you tweeting about this thing with Roger Stone. You obviously know Roger Stone from over the years. And Roger Stone getting 3 years from the judge, although that's still kind of in flux right now, depending upon what comes out of all this. And will the president pardon him? And should he pardon Roger Stone in the long run? Lots going on in that question.
Yeah, I'm beginning to think that he should pardon Roger. I just think when you see what happened to Andrew McCabe, who, according to the Inspector General's report from the Justice Department, lied, I don't know whether it was 3 or 4 times, and he skates. And Roger is accused of lying, and off he goes. They want him to do 9 years. I mean, this is just bizarre. I mean, what this shows is you've got people inside the administrative state, and anybody associated with Donald Trump, including Donald Trump, they're going to come after.
Right.
There is something deeply, deeply wrong with this. And I think Roger is, and let me just say, knowing him, he's the president called him a character the other day.
He is a
bit of a character.
Yes.
He's kind of eccentric and all of this kind of thing. But still in all, you don't convict somebody because you don't like their style. You don't throw the book at them just because you don't like them or you don't like their associations, et cetera. Aside from which, he wasn't in the Trump campaign.
Right. Well, we're truly seeing the swamp wars going on now. The book that you wrote is Swamp Wars, and I hope people will check that out. Final question for you. How do we ever, maybe we can't do it, get away from this double standard that If you're part of the ruling class, you're going to get the chance to skate, as you said, like with McCabe. People who work inside the government, you get a chance to skate. If you're the outsider, if you're Donald Trump or anyone associated with him, you don't get that same possibility. How do we close down that double standard, if we close it down at all, or is it just the horse is out of the barn and it's going to get worse?
No, I've come to think that this is one of the purposes of the Trump administration, that this should be one of the goals, to get this stuff in order and put an end to it, period. Because there will be another president at some point. And, you can't put another president through this just because you don't like him. I mean, if, for the sake of the argument, any one of these Democrats on the stage were elected president tomorrow, I wouldn't want them to go through this. I mean, this is not acceptable. Jeffrey
Lord, who was in the Reagan administration, also author of Swamp Wars. I hope you will check it out. With us here on WSBA. And don't forget, you can listen to my show weekdays, 6 to 9. WSBA Morning News with Gary Sutton. Jeff, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Gary. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.